everybody? Welcome to the FTW podcast, the wrestling world in all its laughable glory. I am Harrison, and with me, as always, is Mike for the PW Torch. Say hello, Mike.
Hey, guys. Hey, Harrison. How's it going today?
Pretty good. It's just you and me today. We are previewing the Night of Champions pay-per-view. Our special is coming to you live on September 15th, 2011. And on tonight's show, we'll be talking about Night of Champions. If you're new to the show, check out theftwpodcast.com for more about us and how to get involved in tonight's show, as well as upcoming shows. You can reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, voicemail, text message, email. All those links and information are listed right there, so check it out, ftwpodcast.com. But first, we're going to dive right into Night of Champions. And I want to talk about, because we talked about Raw on Tuesday, and I haven't had a chance to talk about SmackDown yet. And I'm going to basically let you lead on this one because I am getting over the plague, and most of my Friday night consisted of being passed out on the couch, so I was unable to see SmackDown. So, given what happened, I mean, is there anything that huge that happened on SmackDown that has implications for Night of Champions, or was it kind of just a bland go-home show?
They set up a lot with the Intercontinental title match that's coming up this Sunday. They set up The Miz defending his title in the Fatal 4-Way match. It'll be The Miz, Rey Mysterio Jr., Sin Cara, and Cody Rhodes. I think that was the big Night of Champions story to come out of SmackDown last Friday. So I'm kind of going over my review that's available up on pwtorch.com.
Nice plug. Nice. Way to slip that one in there.
and apparently I don't have much say as to what I put into the article anymore. Lee is dictating what I should write and what I shouldn't write.
Well, as he should.
He complained that every week I end my review with skippable show, don't even bother watching it, kind of boring. So this week I'm trying to be more up-tempo, and then he goes, well, if you want to make me really happy, throw a 24 reference in there.
Why?
That's right.
They're just getting that show over there from what I understand.
I go, I've never watched 24 once in my life. And he goes, just make something up, it doesn't matter. So I threw in here, and here's a little preview. Starting the Sheamus Daniel Bryan match, I start off going, Sheamus works over the arm of Bryan to start. He then runs Bryan over with the shoulder block. Bryan takes a second to get back to his feet, and he struggles to keep his composure as the crowd chants goat face and yes at him. Jack Bauer, cool under pressure, he is not.
It's not the worst way to slam that in there, I guess.
So I should maybe give Lee some byline credit here on the
you should just reference him right there. Just go.
But yeah, that was the Intercontinental title match. That was the big story to come out of SmackDown concerning Night of Champions.
Well, what about the Kane? Because when we had the show on Tuesday, we talked about the tag team championships with Kane, Bryan, and Truth Kofi, and we think with the way Kane and Bryan are going segment-wise these past few weeks, it almost seems like they're definitely going to drop the titles. Do you still think that that's the case after what happened on SmackDown, or no?
I really don't know. I could see them surprising us and having Kofi and R-Truth retain the titles, and maybe have Kane and Daniel Bryan go back to anger management for 1 or 2 more months and kind of chase after the titles. It's hard to say chase after the titles with, Kane is he's more or less the babyface of the group, and it's Bryan Daniel or Daniel Bryan who's getting the booze of the group. It's a really weird dynamic those two have. The crowd seem to be really behind them. If I had to guess, I'd say I think they'll capture the titles on Sunday, but I won't be surprised if they chased them for another month.
So if you had to put a prediction down, which one would it be? Come on, Mike.
I'll give them the titles tonight.
All right. You're saying Truth and Kofi are going to drop it. Because I got to be honest, when you look at these two teams, as far as what the crowd's behind and what has the most energy coming out of Night of Champions, I mean, Kane and Bryan have a lot more to gain than Truth and Kofi. I mean, if Truth and Kofi win, it's just going to be all about the implications for Kane and Bryan. I mean, even then, it wouldn't be like, hey, Truth and Kofi won. It'll be like, wow, Kane and Bryan got screwed. I wonder if they're going to split now. I mean, even then, the story still stays the same, which is all of it is on Kane and Bryan.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think Truth and Kofi, they have a good dynamic there with. It seems like they're a team for like the kids to get behind and for the kids to cheer. they're kind of taking over that Rey Mysterio role of the kids, kind of maybe see them as being being those those underdogs, those small size, where they beat up the bullies,
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that.
What I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny you're calling Truth the underdog, and then he's got a small size because he's not that small of a guy.
Yeah, well, yeah.
All right, that's fair. All right, so Randy Orton and Dolph Ziggler. When we discussed the show on Tuesday, Lee was the only one who said Orton was going to win this one.
I'm siding with Lee on this one.
Really, you think Orton's going to take the win, even because he's got the movie coming up?
Yeah, I think he's going to take the win over Ziggler. I'm assuming that Ziggler is going to be cashing in Money in the Bank soon, sometime between now and Survivor Series, I'd say. With Randy Orton leaving, if he gets another big win over Ziggler, once Ziggler captures that title, Orton's a good first opponent for him. Someone that where the title's in jeopardy and people want to see Ziggler, get beat up, get his ass kicked and drop the title. That's where you could have Randy Orton come in and put over Ziggler and kind of start off his reign that way.
Yeah, I could see that. I just think that I don't know how long he's going to be out shooting the movie, so I figure he's probably going to be out for at least a few months, and I just don't see...
No, not necessarily. I mean, it could be, a month, 6 weeks tops.
Really?
And even with that, you have guys like John Cena who are always out, shooting movies but never missed a Raw or a SmackDown.
Yeah, that's true. I just don't see Orton really being able to string those two together. All right, for the Divas, I'm actually going to change my vote. I'm going with Caitlyn. I think Layla's going to drop it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, just because she's been, they've been pushing her on a tear and everything. So, yeah, especially after she got a win on SmackDown, right?
Yeah, she got a big win over Beth Phoenix.
Cleanly. Yeah. So, I mean, it makes sense for her to
how the mighty have fallen there.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when we were thinking Beth Phoenix versus Karma would be the greatest feud ever in the Divas division. And whatever alternate universe that's happening in, I hope they're happy.
I bet those fans are really enjoying it.
I bet they're so excited for the next Divas match on the next pay-per-view. Oh, man, we're going to get to see the Glamazon versus Karma. This is going to be spectacular. Can you imagine what the Divas division would be like if this never happened? Oh, it'd be awful.
Boy, their last 3 pay-per-view matches have been epic, and now they have to settle it in an Iron Man match? Wow, I can't wait.
Iron Man best of 3 falls. Yeah, somehow they worked that in there.
I can't believe they're headlining the pay-per-view with this.
Oh, SummerSlam with them as the main event? It's going to be spectacular.
Boy, do I feel bad for those other alternate realities.
Yeah, where they don't have this. That sucks. All right, U.S. champion.
Can you imagine an alternate reality where Beth Phoenix is losing to some NXT jobber like Caitlyn?
Don't even say that, man. That'd be terrible. I wouldn't even wish that on those alternate universes. U.S. Championship. This one I'm the most interested. This one I'm the most interested in as far as an observer, because I really don't think Cesaro's going to drop it a month after he got it. But this is the one where the YouTube pre-show is going to have the battle royale to decide who is going to fight him for the U.S. Championship. And this is what we talked about when they started doing the YouTube pre-shows, is that what would make it really compelling is having it do something that affects the pay-per-view. And I think it's really interesting that if you watch the pre-show, assuming you actually get a chance to watch the pre-show, it's usually buggy as hell. Yeah. So, assuming you get a chance to actually see it, you'll get to see who Cesaro is going to face. Probably, I'd say, I can't imagine they do it in the first, what do you think, first hour? Maybe the first 40 minutes? I think...
I could see it, like, towards the end of the first hour. Maybe after the first match at the top of the second hour, or they'll do a match at 9 o'clock and maybe a world title match or something. Then they'll go into the U.S. Championship match. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe an hour and 15 minutes into the show.
Well, my question for you is, do you find that compelling at all for the YouTube pre-show that you'll be able to watch the Battle Royale and see who Cesaro's going to face, or are you just thinking Cesaro's had the belt for a month, he's not going to drop it probably, and whoever he faces, it's going to be kind of...
Well, who are the names that people are throwing out for him to face?
Santino is the big one that was being kicked around just because... obviously. Just random mid-carders and low-carders that are just being tossed around. I don't think there's an official Battle Royale list as far as what's going on for...
Do you think possibly Matt Morgan debuts?
That would be interesting because... Well, no, he's still under... I thought he was still under the non-compete until at least October.
Well, I think did his contract expire, or did they release him from his contract?
I think they released him from his contract. Man, this is one where I really wish Rob was on, because he would know. It would be interesting if they brought Matt Morgan back, so you'd have him come back for the YouTube pre-show. Would you... Because you got Matt Morgan coming back. He was a pretty... would you say he was a big name in WWE? I mean, he was a name. He was with the Heyman, that Lesnar group for a while? Wasn't he?
That was part of the time when I really wasn't watching WWE that much. I just base things off like the couple of pay-per-views I saw.
I want to say...
I'm not sure if today's WWE audience would be as familiar with him.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too.
If he debuted.
Yeah, because you're talking, 5-6 years? Maybe more?
It's not like someone like Christian, who, when he came back 3 years ago, he was at the top of TNA when he left, and, he was pretty popular in WWE. He had a good run for, 5 or 6 years when he left WWE. Matt Morgan, I think, was only really around for a good year or two before he left for TNA.
Yeah, I think so.
And even with that, it's not like he was where he was world champion or chasing after a title or anything. Where he was at the top of the card, he was kind of a mid card big guy.
Yeah. Well, some of the names being chucked around. I mean, because Cesaro's a heel, it makes sense for a face. But a couple names being chucked around. I mean, like Brodus Clay was another one. The other one was Ryback, but I don't know about that.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to put him in there because, we have yet to see him in anything other than a squash match. Or, where he's basically defeating his opponent. And if he is going up against a group, it's against two, local wrestlers. So the idea of putting him in a battle royale, that would be interesting. And then if he wins going up against Cesaro, I'd imagine he'd have to win, because I don't think Antonio Cesaro is really the guy you want to have hand Ryback his first loss.
Yeah, especially with both of them being relatively new, that would really derail one. And if Ryback came in and he squashed Cesaro, I think that would derail Cesaro, much like we've seen all the other new guys get eventually thrown off their course and put on the back burner. I think I'm going to rule out Ryback.
Yeah, I'd rule out Ryback too, just because it's just.
I would keep him on his own course.
Yeah,
keep them separate for right now.
And there's room on the card for another singles match. I mean, we got. Every title is being defended, but other than that, we just got other than every title, it's just Randy Orton and Ziggler, and that's it. So you think Divas isn't going to be more than 10 minutes? A lot of these other matches will probably be pretty, short. I mean, Punk and Cena might go long. World title might go long. IC title might go long too because there's 4 people in it. But you're thinking. You can't fill up 3 hours with this. So having giving Ryback a singles match, yeah, I could see that. So what about someone?
I'm kind of intrigued by Brodus Clay. I think he'd be a good pick to put up against Cesaro, and he's credible enough, and I think a loss wouldn't hurt him too much at this point.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is because the other thing I'm trying to think of somebody that you can really put up there. I'm just constantly thinking who would lose and not be hurt. And I could think Brodus Clay. I could think, maybe someone like Tyson Kidd or something. But
yeah. On SmackDown they had a altercation with Tyson Kidd, Brodus Clay, and Cesaro, where Cesaro he was unhappy not knowing who his opponent was and having to face someone who was going to win a battle royal. Well, Kidd came out and cut a quick promo on him. Cesaro knocked him out of the ring, and then Brodus Clay came in, and then Brodus and Tyson Kidd kind of jumped Cesaro from behind and knocked him out of the ring.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe have it maybe something happens in the Battle Royale and we got 2 winners somehow. I don't see how that would happen. Or, I could see Tyson Kidd, but I just think between Tyson Kidd and Brodus Clay, I think you're right. Brodus Clay could take the loss and not be hurt. Whereas I think Tyson Kidd, any kind of momentum he has right now, it kind of stalls it. Unless they're planning on, unless Cesaro doesn't get a clean win, I mean, that's always an option. All right, so are you thinking Cesaro's going to drop the title at all, or are you just basically sticking to your guns here?
I'm going with Cesaro.
All right. And as far as the Divas match, you said that you think Caitlyn's going to win?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Caitlyn more or less just for a change in the Divas division. Layla's not exactly lighting the world on fire there.
Yeah, seriously. All right, so the IC Championship, or I'm sorry, the IC title. We got Miz, Cody, Ray, and Sin Cara. I don't know. I just don't think Miz is doing so well with that title. I can't imagine you'd have him drop it now. I mean, Ray and Sin Cara just feels like, it feels like a mismatch of guys right here, and I just think Cody stands to get probably the most heat out of it, but I think Miz probably should keep the belt. I mean, what do you think?
I'm actually going to go with Sin Cara on this.
Really? You're going with Botch Cara?
Yeah, I think they've been putting a lot of time into him lately. You know, he isn't losing on TV at all. I can't remember last match that he lost.
Didn't he lose against Cody a while ago? I'm going to say 3 weeks ago. Anyway.
I don't remember. Yeah. Anyway, he's a Triple H project, and I see them wanting to start getting their money's worth out of Sin Cara.
Start selling those T-shirts, masks. Yeah.
I mean, he's been derailed for the last year, and it seems like he's come back. He's got some momentum to him the last few months. I think he's going to take the IC title on Sunday.
Okay. Do you see any kind of alternate universe where the Divas division is awesome that Rey Mysterio might win?
Yeah, Ray's always a possibility.
But lately, this is like Ray 4 months ago, yeah. But since Ray came back from his mandatory vacation, he just doesn't have it.
Yeah, I think that's what's kind of hurting him more than anything is having those 2 strikes against him. To where, they'll put, he'll win his matches on Raw and SmackDown, but to put any kind of title or any kind of real momentum behind him, I think they're kind of hesitant to do.
Yeah.
They could throw him in a match like this, and he can get those near falls or those hope spots where people think he's going to win. But like I said, it's a possibility, but I don't really see it happening.
All right, I don't know. I'm still sticking with Miz just because him having the belt right now. Because I'm trying to think. You can't have every I'm kind of hedging my bets here, thinking that. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking 3-3. That. Well, maybe I'm thinking most of the belts are probably going to be retained tonight. And first off, Night of Champions, I never really did like that gimmick. The idea that you would have all of your titles being defended on the pay-per-view, and that's somehow a big deal.
Yeah.
I was like, well, shouldn't that be every pay-per-view the belt's being defended? So, I just always thought it was of all the gimmick pay-per-views they have, it's probably the weakest one.
At SummerSlam, every title was defended.
There you go.
They had Truth and Kofi versus the Primetime Players. They had oh gosh, who did Layla fight?
I don't think they did. No, I really don't think they had the Divas belt defended on SummerSlam. Because I think we made a comment that it's SummerSlam, the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, arguably. It's the biggest pay-per-view of the summer, and they didn't have the Divas on there.
Yeah.
Ha 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 ha! So that Night of Champions does have a reason. So we can
Night of Champions has its purpose.
To have the Divas belt defended. There you go. I'm going with Miz, not just because of the home field advantage, but, that I could go to... you're closer than I am to where he's from, but I just think that he's just got so much heat with that belt, and I think without it, he looks kind of... He's not quite made that turn where he could kind of drop the belt. Remember when he had the U.S. Championship for a while, then he had both belts, and then when he dropped those to go after the WWE title, he hasn't quite made that turn yet where he can move up to the upper card. And I think he's still a solid mid-carder, and I think him having the belt is a lot stronger than him not having the belt.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, give it a few months. Maybe by the time, we have Royal Rumble coming around and then, WrestleMania, maybe he might be able to move up to the upper card. But I think just, him being away from TV for so long, it's just, I don't see him.
It's also been thrown around that he might be replacing the King on Monday nights.
Really? For color? I could see that. He did a really good job last week. Not this past week, but the week before, when King had his match against CM Punk. Yeah.
So he's one of the names that's being thrown around, as is JBL is another one.
Yeah, we were talking about that on Tuesday. That JBL was probably the big name. One thing I was thinking is, I mean, it kind of hurts now because every time they bring Stryker out, they either don't know who he is or no one cares. But I always thought that Matt Stryker should be someone that they put besides Cole, just because I'm a huge Cole and Stryker fan. I think the two of them together is just dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, world title. Sheamus versus Del Rio. Now, this is the other one. We got a bonus here, obviously. We do this every time this belt's defended, is that Ziggler cashes. Of us on Tuesday, Garvin was the only one that thought Del Rio would this is my favorite part. Garvin's scenario was Del Rio wins and then Ziggler cashes, making Alberto Del Rio the shortest world title holder in the history of the WWE. For some reason, he thought that was hilarious. I don't know. I'm thinking Sheamus retains, but then Ziggler, only to then drop the title to Ziggler when he cashes. I mean, do you think this is going to be it, or because you said earlier that Ziggler's got to cash between now and maybe a few months from now?
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling that I have is in the next few months he'll cash in. No, I think Sheamus retains tomorrow, and I think that's all it's going to be.
So you don't think Ziggler's going to cash?
No, I think he'll overcome the odds of not being able to use the bro kick and possibly having David Otunga and Ricardo at ringside to cause distractions. I think he'll just overcome the odds and retain the title.
All right, so if Ziggler doesn't cash tonight, I mean, do you see him cashing between now and what's the next pay-per-view? It's not over the limit.
Hell in a Cell.
Hell in a Cell.
Is it? Yeah, I think it's Hell in a Cell.
Maybe October? Yeah, it's usually the one they do in October,
There's so many pay-per-view. Who can really keep track anymore besides Vince McMahon?
Yeah, even then, I don't think he does. Okay, so between now and, let's say, 4 weeks from now, at the next pay-per-view, do you see Ziggler cashing on a Raw, or do you think they would only do it on a pay-per-view?
I think they would do it on a Raw.
Really?
Do it on live. I mean, they have done before on SmackDown, where it's been taped and everyone knows coming. But I think with Raw dipping in the ratings, I think they're going to start pulling more tricks out of their bag, and having that cash in on Raw might be one of them.
See, I think that is a mistake, because Monday Night Football, those viewers are gone. I mean, they're not coming back. They're just going to DVR Raw and watch it on Tuesday. So I'm thinking if you're going to pull any tricks, pull them on SmackDown. I mean, let's start steering viewership over to there, because they're not fighting any sporting events on Friday.
And that show desperately needs
something.
Some kind of overhaul to bring those fans back, or even just to bring any kind of excitement back. SmackDown's really been dull, I'd say, since WrestleMania. Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem that hurts is that it is taped. So any of the the hardcore fans are just going to get the spoilers ahead of time. I mean, sometimes we even get them during the show that we're doing on Tuesday. So, but I mean, I can't imagine how they would logistically do a live show Friday and then another one on Monday, especially when you have a pay-per-view on Sunday. I mean, just getting the bodies to the arenas. I'm not sure how they do that. Well, when they've done the live shows, it's kind of tanked in the ratings, and as you can see, they don't have one scheduled for this quarter, and it's usually a quarterly thing that they do it. The live SmackDowns.
Oh yeah.
They did abysmal rating. Abysmal rating back in July was the last live show they did.
Oh, what was the rating? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, it was like a 1.7 or so.
Damn, that's like.
I mean, it was well below what they normally do on a Friday.
Interesting.
But
kind of weird.
But I mean, Raw is their flagship show, and that is the show that they'll want to get behind, to bring the viewers in. They'll do that cash in, and the people that watch Monday Night Football, they'll tell them, well, you missed out on this, so you missed this big moment happening. But if you tune in next week, you definitely won't miss what we have in store.
Yeah, I guess
they'll use as their little hook.
Yeah, I guess I can see that, but the only problem is, I mean, what are the big hooks? Other than maybe like a debut or something like that? I'm just thinking there's nothing really time sensitive as far as Raw. I mean, if there's something that happened, I don't know. I mean, if SmackDown was live on Tuesday, because then you would have to you'd have to watch Raw live on Monday in order to have context for whatever, if it affected the show on Tuesday. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, other than there's no real reason why you wouldn't just DVR it. I mean, everybody on Tuesday is going to be talking about Raw, they're going to be talking about the football game.
Yeah.
At least as far as the viewership goes. You
know, a very good hook they could do is they could say, all right, well, if this many people watch, we'll have Raw go back to 2 hours.
Yeah, that would work. Man, those 3-hour Raws are killer.
If we crack a 3.5 rating, we will go back to 2 hours.
We promise. So they could just put a gun up against a puppy and say, if we crack a 3.5 rating, the puppy won't die. And they can have a meter right there with the running digits, and then if it dips below 3, you see the trigger start to get pulled. And then it's like, shit, gotta watch.
Get the remote.
Get the remote. Turn all the TVs on the house.
They're not fucking around.
Hey, that would work. All right, here it is. WWE title. CM Punk versus John Cena. The problem that I have is that John Cena's in my draft team, but I picked Punk to win. And I want to kick this out to you, Mike, because I got a little bit of heat about it as far as a reason. My reasoning is I don't see CM Punk dropping the title until, months from now, because they keep kicking out that date when Punk is going to pass John Cena for longest title reign and beat John Cena's record. And the best part is the record falls on a Sunday, which they could just pop a pay-per-view right there and then have it come out where he faces John Cena for that record and then have Punk come out on Raw with the belt, beating John Cena's record. I can't imagine why they wouldn't, just mathematically, that's like impossible to have happen. I can't imagine that they would not do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fact that they keep mentioning how long his title reign has been is making me think every month, this isn't going to be a month he's going to drop it, especially on a off-brand pay-per-view like Night of Champions. I don't see it happening tonight. I think Punk stays champion until he faces The Rock at Royal Rumble. I really think that's where he's going to drop the title.
Okay, so you do think it's going to be Punk versus Rock at Royal Rumble?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I just think it's such a weird... The only problem I have with that is the feud going into it. I think is just going to be one of those weird mismatches because, like I keep pointing out, that the great thing about Punk and John Cena is that Cena and Punk both have a very very good mastery of playing off the other person, and Cena is big. He likes to, everything he does, he consumes the room. It's larger. He brings his presence to you, whereas Punk is so subtle that when he's at his best, he's pulling you in towards him. And that tension is why they're so good on the mic, because Cena just big and boisterous and, loud and calls out to the fans, and Punk's the guy where he's in the middle of a promo and then just subtly leans over and fires jabs at Lawler. Doesn't walk around, doesn't march, doesn't, big and point or anything like that. He just leans over, and just by his tone and his body, just by the way he just...
and he has like a facial expression to him, too.
Yeah, exactly. Non-verbal cues. It's so... And they're so minor and so subtle that he pulls you in. I don't see Rock being able to play with that, because Rock and Cena both have similar styles, and Cena just owned Rock on the mic. All Rock did was come out and give it the same 5, things, boots to asses, hey, finally Rock came back here. It was like, and then he has notes on the hand, and even when Cena called him out on it, Rock really didn't have much. It was like, yeah, it's like, dude, I just don't see, I don't see Punk and Rock really having a great feud.
I think Punk can bring something else out in Rock. The difference between Punk Cena and, Punk Rock and Cena Rock is that Punk will be a definite heel. Where with Rock and Cena, you had two baby faces going at it, and now whatever Punk says, he's just a heel trying to say that stuff to, because he's a bad guy. I think it would add a different dynamic to the promos and the feuds leading up to it.
I can see that. I can definitely see Punk doing a very good job of playing that heel role. I just think Rock's been out of the game for so long. I can't see, even when he was doing the babyface stuff against Cena, they were still doing their best to kind of build some tension and build some heat. Like, Cena's like, I think the best angle they took is when Cena was like, I'm here every day, where are you? Mm-hmm. They did something to build some heat between them, so it wasn't like a dead in the water type of feud that they had just because both of them were baby faces. My problem with it was Cena was just better on the mic, which you really wouldn't expect with Rock. But I just think it was...
Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, I just think it was... I mean, and the thing that really killed it, all those satellite interviews, the fact that Rock was not in the arena, the guy, when he's out there, even if his stuff isn't that great, he's still, like he says, he's still electric. He's still amazing on the mic. So having him in the arena, in front of those people, is an important aspect to it. And even now, if he didn't do it for Cena, do you really think he's going to do it for Punk, where he's going to show up for Raw maybe not every week, but every other week?
Well, the lead up to WrestleMania, he was there every week. The Rock was. He may have missed 1 week, but he was there, 5 out of 6 weeks at least.
Yeah, that's true.
And with the lead up to Royal Rumble, the hype doesn't really start until January. You have that early December pay-per-view, and you go from early December until December 31st. They always throw on some little mini feuds for the guys to get through in those few months, because really that Christmas season is kind of a dead time for Raw.
Yeah.
So really, you're only looking at 3 appearances that The Rock has to make going up to a Royal Rumble. He could come back, cut that insane babyface promo first Raw of 2013, and then kind of coast then going into the Royal Rumble.
And do you think that'll be enough to really make Punk versus Rock an interesting feud?
Yeah, I think it could be.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I could definitely see Rock coming in. First Raw of the new year, and The Rock is coming back. Yay! And he's bringing a Wii. So I could definitely see that. And I see what you're saying as far as mechanically making it work. I just worry about. I mean, I don't want to hate on Rock because he's amazing. It's just his mic work just wasn't really. I mean, do you think that was part of the hype? Do you think, because we had a year and we're looking at it, in hindsight, do you think that part of it was we were expecting too much?
Yeah, I think part was we're expecting too much, and people didn't expect anything out of Cena. Everyone expected Cena to just get destroyed every week verbally, and when it didn't happen, I think that was a big letdown to people. They wanted Fruity Pebbles and whatever the hell else The Rock said about Cena. They wanted that every week, and instead it was Cena, kicking Rock's ass back to the locker room and back to Hollywood every week on the mic.
Yeah, I think the problem is everyone kind of forgot that this is what made Cena famous, was his mic work when he was the hip hop homeboy. I mean, when he actually did that actual rap about Rock, I mean, it was like those things where even on the show, all of our fans were like, that was awesome. We were like, oh yeah, that's right. Cena used to do this. It wasn't just, calls out to kids and everything.
There's a guy I work with that really hates Cena, despises him. He's one of the biggest Cena haters I've ever seen. But after last Monday's Raw, when he did that promo with CM Punk, where, I call it the John Cena pipe bomb promo, he goes, wow, if John Cena talked more like that, I could see myself becoming a fan of him, but he's just so corny and throwing out the poopy jokes.
Well, the part of that is the PG product that they're trying to put out, what they're trying to package Cena as, and it's hard to. It's hard to see something like that and still have respect for somebody. I mean, I can understand where he's coming from and that, it is a waste of talent. But at the same time, I mean, the guy is, seeing his company through and through. I mean, he'd do anything for WWE. So I think hurting his character is something that, I mean, even he acknowledges the fact that a lot of fans and stuff, and half the arena is going to hate him. Just because, he's out there every day or every week doing the babyface promo, saying hi to the kids, doing the same 6 moves, selling the T-shirts and the DVDs, being on the USA promos. I could definitely see why people would hate on him. But, I mean, the fact that, like you were saying, the Cena pipe bomb promo, that he and Punk came out there and just did what they did, especially with no one knowing what the status of King was at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be one of those moments that we'll remember for years.
Mm-hmm. I just read something. I forget if it was Punk or... No, it was Bret Hart. Recently did an interview where he said that they found out seconds before that they went out there that Lawler was breathing on his own and, that his heart was beating on its own. So, I mean, they got good news going out there, but
still,
it was the rest of the audience that didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, had they not known, that might have been a completely different promo that they had.
Yeah, that's true. But it's just one of those situations where, regardless of what the news was, I mean, it's difficult to go out there and then do your job.
Yeah, it was a messed up situation.
Yeah, and they got the crowd. I mean, that's the other thing, too. They got the crowd. And you got to think the crowd, I don't know if WWE was giving the crowd announcements in the commercial break saying, hey, this is the update on Lawler. So they didn't know anything.
No idea, zero, nothing.
Yeah, so all they saw was Lawler fall, go off on the stretcher, no reference, and a lot of shots of Cole with his face in his hands, and then Punk and Cena come out at the end of the night and get that crowd. I mean, that...
But in this day of age with smartphones, I'm pretty sure the crowd knew what was going on, even though they weren't being told, which they should have been told. During the breaks, you could have said something to the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not the entire crowd would have known, or at least at that point, because I don't even think anybody knew at that point that he was breathing on his own. I mean, it was just getting out on Twitter when those two were out there. So I can't imagine that the entire crowd would breathe a collective sigh of relief because they all hit Twitter on their phones. Oh man, yeah, it was rough. It was rough to see. Okay, so Punk versus Cena. I'm a fan of I'm always a fan of watching these two, especially in the ring, because they just work so well off each other. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. What I found the most interesting is you have Bret Hart coming out at the beginning of the show, and it's at the end of the show, doing a very Bret Hart promo. I mean, very exactly what he used to do. And then you see Cena and Punk doing what they do, and you think, over the span of all this time, how different the industry has, how far it's come as far as mic work between them, right? Not just wrestling moves, not just like double, triple superplexes and stuff into tables, and the evolution of the DDT or whatever. Just the evolution of mic work over this course of time. Whereas back then, that Bret Hart's promo would have just lit the crowd on fire, and then now it was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, we get it. Yeah,
it was like good to reminisce.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I remember when I used to love this. It was. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, do you think that's, or do you think that it was more Bret Hart? He's kind of old. I mean, you're hesitant to say that, but
yeah, I am a huge Bret Hitman Hart fan. He's easily my number one wrestler of all time. I've always been a fan of his. It's always good to see him when he comes out for Raw and he cuts those promos. He does seem a step behind, at his old age, and that's to be expected. But yeah, I mean, you really see how the industry has changed. Even in 15 years was the last time he was in, when he was in WWE for his last run. And I mean, when he was there, that's when it was just starting out, where you would come out and you'd cut a big promo to start the show, and maybe a big promo to end the show. That's kind of how Bret left things in WWF at the time. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see how things have gone in even 25 years, where you would have the guys come out and talk to Mean Gene for 30 seconds and then go to the ring for their match, and then come back and maybe whoever won the match would have words of Mean Gene, and you didn't have these long 10-15 minute promos where guys would just march out one after another and cut promos on each other, and then have Teddy Long make matches with everyone who just happens to be in the ring.
In a tag match, yeah. No, just watching it, you kind of just see, like you're saying, just how far it's come in just 15 years, and that Bret Hart promo, if he is a step behind, it was still just as good. I would say it was just as good as his average stuff back then. Like when he wasn't really like on fire going up against like, I don't know, Jake the Snake or something like that, or his really great stuff when he was going up against Shawn Michaels. I mean, that was when he was on fire. But even now, that promo that he did, when he came out to the crowd, very heartfelt, very, it was him. It wasn't, him doing the Hitman persona or anything like that. It was Bret Hart coming out, son of Stu Hart, explaining to the crowd, this place means a lot to me, and you mean a lot to me, and that type of thing. And then Cena and Punk also have promos, and it's just amazing to see how much more complex and how much more depth they have between them two. And you can almost see Bret Hart kind of taking a step back and just watching it play out and going, God damn.
Yeah, but I bet there's a part of Bret that also looked at that and didn't care for it, with it being so scripted. That he's an old school guy, he wants to go out there with just bullet points and he can cut that 10-minute promo just off a few bullet points.
Yeah.
So I would imagine he didn't care for that part of it. With that, he would say it was not a great promo since it was written out and scripted.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Especially when you consider how far, I mean, when he left and then WWF transitioned into the Attitude Era, that's when all those backstage segments were huge, and they were all pretty much 100% scripted. So I can definitely see why he would think that. But, even if you look at it from that point of view, you have to look at it and think, they still got the crowd, still got a massive heat between them, still hyped up the match, and this is something that Joe on the show hates. It was the last thing on the flagship show to go home before the pay-per-view.
Yeah, the main event promo.
Yeah, the main event promo. Not a match, a promo. Mm-hmm. And I think that did more for these two than any match possibly could. Because usually it would be, like you were saying, you would have Mean Gene come out, do the rubber match, then these guys would cut a promo, and then you would have kind of a mixed tag match where you'd have two guys that have a match that night versus two other guys that they're facing that night in a tag match. So you see them working in the ring, and it builds up the heat, and that's what builds up the heat for the pay-per-view. I haven't seen that in a while, and I don't think that's really going to be coming back in any kind of vogue fashion. Now it's you cut the heel, you cut the promo, and you use the mic work to build the heat. You get the crowd behind you or against you, and then you steer that for, on Raw before the pay-per-view. And it seems like, that's just another one of those things where it's the wrestling, as far as WWE, it's evolving as far as where it's going. And, Joe's very much like you were saying, very old school. He likes the idea of matches build heat, matches do it all. Promos are great, but it's the stuff in the ring that sells it. And the fact that, Raw, the last segment, the main event was a segment, is just, I loved it.
And I agree with Joe to an extent. I think the writers in WWE and all that, they just do what they know now. I don't think they know how to sell a pay-per-view off of wrestling anymore. I don't think they can do that if they tried. To them, it's all about cutting promos and doing angles and stuff like that. I don't think they know how to tell a proper story in the ring and have it result in buys for a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I can see that, because the only times I can think of when storytelling was really very prominent in the ring was when at least it was when you had very old school wrestlers. The last great one I could think of was WrestleMania with Triple H, Taker, and Shawn Michaels. They wrote the book on it right there. If you wanted to show excellent storytelling within the context of a match, that was it. Especially with all the and that was 100% promo leading up to that match. And then it was them that wrapped it up and put it all together. And I really think that comes down to the talent. And like you're saying, not the writers, because I think you're right. I don't think WWE writers at this point can do that.
Yeah. You could go back really old school. They would have pay-per-view matches based around... I remember they did an old Survivor Series match where the Rockers and the Brainbusters ended up getting disqualified from the match just because they were brawling on the outside. And that led to a 6-month feud between the guys that ended in I think that ended like at SummerSlam or something, or a big blow-off match at SummerSlam. There were no promos or run-ins or anything. It just started with guys brawling outside of the ring, and you don't see too much of that today. Now you need someone to walk backstage and disrespect AJ and have her throw so and so in a match with another guy, and then have someone run in during the match to cause a DQ, and now the guy who got DQ'd is feuding with the guy who did... it's just so, complex and almost, overwritten,
Yeah, but at the same time, I look back at I like that aspect of it. I like the idea that it is kind of written like that, and I like the idea of telling stories within the context of this, and telling very, human stories. And I like the idea of betrayal and good versus evil. I like the CM Punk heel turn, and that he's very much he never got the main event, even though he's the one with the belt. He's and I love that in the beginning it was the WWE champion deserves it, and then now it's starting to become, as the heel persona is starting to get hooked into the crowd, he's changed it to, I deserve this, I deserve the respect. And I love that kind of turn that they're doing with it. And I really don't think you can really do that with a match. At some point, yeah, matches are important, but you need to do the mic work in order to really tell a story, at least in this day and age.
You could definitely do that in a match. You want to look at probably the greatest double turn match ever done. Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, that's true.
WrestleMania 13.
Yeah, but
I mean that thrust Steve Austin in being the number one good guy in the company for 6 years because of, I think that was it was the Austin 316 promo that that got people to like start recognizing him and paying attention to him. But it was that match that pretty much set the tone for the rest of his career.
Yeah, but times like that are so far and few between. I mean, when you look at, as far as a heel-face turn within the context of a wrestling match, you have to do it either somewhat like that, like the face just like gets frustrated and takes out the heel or something like that. But the reasoning for it and the subtlety to it, I mean, you really can only get that within a promo, within mic work, with the character telling the story as far as why they're doing this type of thing. And personally, I am not... I'm fine with having a main event. I'm fine with having a main event promo if it's that good. If the last thing when you leave, because face it, when Raw ended, we all went, wow.
Yeah. And that doesn't happen every month.
Yeah, that's true too.
That on the go home show, that doesn't happen.
Especially for Night of Champions of all things.
Yeah. If anything, this should have happened at SummerSlam.
Yeah, really.
But I think Punk did a pretty good heel turn in his match with Cena at Raw 1000 without a promo. He had those great facial expressions where he was really torn as to, do I beat Cena here to, do I hit him with the chair and beat him, or do I let him get up and beat him fair and square?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I mean, he had great subtleties to that, and there were no words spoken with it, and you knew exactly what he was thinking, and the way that match ended, it brought us to this point, and it all led to the respect then.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. I guess you kind of just need both in order to be able to tell a really good story. And I think that's part of the reason why Punk is on such a tear, because he can do it both in the ring and on the mic. And it's great to see someone like Cena that's able to do it both, be able to do it as well. And that's the other thing, too. You can look at Kane and Bryan for the same reason. Kane and Bryan together in the ring, yeah, I mean, that's great storytelling between the two of them. And it's the promos that also set it apart, So... if you have one and not the other, it kind of languishes. All right, so as far as Night of Champions, the pay-per-view itself as a whole.
One last thing with Punk and Cena.
Oh, sure.
How do you see Paul Heyman?
He's got to be involved. He has to be, right?
Picture. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to be there some capacity. I don't know if... I mean, because I loved that so much when Heyman came down and was talking with Punk, and they were just talking. And they were just talking, and at one point, all you could hear is Punk saying, like, "Well, I want to go someplace to eat," and they were discussing restaurants to eat in Montreal. So I don't know. He's got to be involved in some capacity. Do you think he cost Cena the match? I think it's I like the idea of Heyman and Punk are obviously colluding, but you don't know how, or you don't know to what end. And I think.
They gave us nothing on Monday.
Exactly.
They had us intrigued. We're all intrigued, and they gave us nothing to go on.
Exactly, and I love that. I love that uncertainty, and I think Heyman, whatever Heyman does, it's going to have to also have that kind of subtlety, because if he comes down and basically distracts the ref and Punk hits Cena with a crotch shot, I mean, that's going to be like the worst payoff ever. They got to do something where it's going to be, monumental, but incredibly clever at the same time. So he's got to be involved in this match, but I don't think it's going to be in any way that we could really anticipate.
Yeah. I'm really anxious to see how he fits in there. I'm wondering if Brock Lesnar makes some kind of appearance to maybe not tomorrow night, but maybe at the next pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I'm really thinking that they're setting up a Survivor Series match of maybe Punk and Lesnar versus Cena and Triple H.
Yeah, I don't know about Triple H, just because that whole... Well, he didn't really actually say he retired. He said he retired without actually saying he retired. But the problem I have is that Lesnar came out and then went on tout, and then... Which, by the way, WWE decided... Oh, no, they did mention it once on Raw. He comes out and he quits on tout, and then they mention it, and then it's dropped, and that's the end of it. And now Heyman's hanging out with Punk. So if they do bring Lesnar back, I think it's going to have to be something big or something, because having Lesnar come back after he quit on Tout, it's like, well, did he not quit? I mean, did they sign something? Is he back for good? I mean, did he sign a new contract? Is Triple H okay with this? It was such a weird... I'm still not entirely sure what they were thinking with that.
Yeah, I think they were just thinking, well, we got to get Lesnar off the air for, the next 2 months or 3 months until his next match. How do we do that without having someone just jump him from behind or something?
So I'm going on Tout and say I quit.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a heelish thing to do, and then when he comes back, he's a heel. He lies. That's what he does.
But that's what Batista used to do all the time.
Yeah, and Jericho used to do that as well.
I mean, yeah. So
2 years ago, when people knew Jericho was leaving, but they didn't know when, he would come out and go, if I don't win the title in this match, I'm quitting. And then he loses the match, and then the next week he's back.
Yeah. So it was exactly like that kind of thing. It's like, well, then it really loses... I don't know. I mean, you kind of... Not really lose heat for the guy, but you just kind of lose respect, maybe? I mean, I think it just hurts the character that he's going to come out and say, all right, quit. Stamp his feet and be all pissy. Because that's what Batista used to do, and that really killed Batista. When he would come out and bitch about how he wasn't getting his fair share or whatever because Cena was getting all the spotlight. Basically, what Punk's doing, but worse. And then it just hurt him. It just really hurt him. And then when Batista finally did leave, he's like, I fucking quit. And then gets out of his wheelchair and stomps off. I don't know. I just think having a giant man acting like a petulant child just hurts the character.
Well, I don't think he quit like a child. I mean, he said, even though he'd only won one match out of the two he's wrestled,
yeah,
where he was, there's nothing else I have to prove. I've beaten everyone. I've done everything I want to do. Blah, blah, blah. And, I mean, that could be his reason in coming back, was that he hasn't beaten John Cena. He still has that match lingering with him. Which,
going into... that's the thing, I think, going into the Royal Rumble. I like the idea of Rock versus Punk, Cena versus Lesnar. Because going into Royal Rumble, we got to have Cena do something, and he can't be in the Rumble just because... I mean, the guy's beyond it.
Sure he can. The Rock beats Punk for the title. Cena wins the Royal Rumble, challenges The Rock to WrestleMania.
But they did. Yeah, but they said they would never do that again. Well, no, they said once in a lifetime. And the idea, well, I guess that time it wasn't for the belt. I don't know. I just think.
And with this, they go, hey, it was unplanned. He won the Rumble.
It was unplanned. We had no idea that was going to happen. Weird, right?
Who saw that coming? Besides those FTW podcast guys.
Yeah, boy, is my face red. Cena, you.
Like someone burned the trucks that have the big pictures of them from last year.
And they can just reprint the posters. That's all I have to do.
They'll never know.
Just slap a new logo on it, and you're done. And then they can just make it. They can tape it with masking tape, make it very clear that's what they did. Hey, remember
instead of once in a lifetime, they'll just put up once in a calendar year.
Once in a calendar year. Once in the lifetime of a field mouse. All right, so so Heyman's going to make an appearance. Lesnar probably not. I mean, I just don't see Lesnar coming back for a while. And even if they do, maybe Lesnar's thinking he did beat everybody because by the transitive property, him beating Triple H has beat everybody. So maybe it's like that. Yeah. I beat him, so by extension, I've beaten everybody he's beaten.
You know what? By that logic, I think it was last year where the Browns beat the Super Bowl champions in preseason.
Yeah.
Does that make the Browns the best player or the best team in the NFL?
At that week, yes. And let me tell you, as a fan, we felt like it. Screw you. Yeah. They demolished the Packers. So it was like, hey, all right. The Browns beat the team that beat everybody else. By the transitive property, the Browns should have the best team in the NFL. Week 2 of the playoff. Week 2 of the preseason. All right, so Night of Champions. It's an offbeat pay-per-view. It's kind of a toss-away one. I mean, the compelling things for me going into it are going to be the Punk Cena match, just because it'll be interesting to see how they play that. Kane Bryan, because I want them to win the belt, and the YouTube pre-show, because I want to see how this interacts with the U.S. Championship, and I like that. I really like that. I hope they keep doing something like that, where what happens on YouTube affects the pay-per-view. I really like that, because it makes you want to tune in the YouTube pre-show, assuming the stream is working. What about you, buddy?
I had another thought on the Battle Royal. What about a Big Show returning as a face.
Yeah,
he's been off TV since SummerSlam.
Yep.
So I mean that's an eternity for wrestling fans.
That's 4 weeks. Yeah. We only have a memory that lasts 4 days. So
he's been doing all the house shows and dark matches, but just for whatever reason he just hasn't been on TV.
Was he in Australia when they did that trip? I think he went. Yeah, he did go.
Yeah, it was him and Laurinaitis versus Cena.
Yeah. I remember that now.
There we go. John Laurinaitis wins Battle Royal.
Yeah, there you go, Mike. So you're thinking possibly Big Show, but then if he comes back and beats Antonio Cesaro, Cesaro has the U.S. Championship brand new for a month.
No, I'm not saying he beats him. I'm just saying maybe he comes in the Battle Royal and challenges Cesaro, maybe loses.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just don't
just one of the 1,000 scenarios.
Yeah.
The Infinite Earths. That's that's the second match from the top in the Beth Phoenix versus Caitlyn universe.
Yeah.
We'll call that Earth 13.
Yeah, Earth 13 against the Awesome Divas matches. Man, that'd be great. All right, so Mike, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do it?
You can follow me on Twitter at MJCUPACH. I'll be tweeting live tomorrow during the Night of Champions pay-per-view. You can also check out my reviews of SmackDown over at pwtorch.com. This week's show should be up sometime today or tomorrow, so you can always check that out. That's about it. Check me on Twitter, pwtorch.com. And this FTW, all these FTW preview shows, frequent guest on the show.
Well, you're on Tuesday night occasionally, and that's always great when you are. All right, and that's it. That is the show. You can check out FTWpodcast.com for more information about us and how to get involved in the future. There's a support tab you can click where you can donate, buy some merch, as well as links to us on iTunes and Stitcher so you can rate us. We accept no less than 4 stars. We record every FTW podcast episode on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at FTWLive.com. Look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. Night of Champions is tomorrow. I will be live tweeting it with Mike from the same BW3s, so most likely him and I will just be bitching about the service and how everybody else around us looks like they eat Cheetos nonstop all day, every day. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Laters.